Greetings and salutations. Welcome to episode 104 of Ref the District. I'm Nathan Perry. That's Trev, and that's the Stoner. And you're going to know that because I'm finally going to click that button that says show the display names. That's for our visual people who are watching the show live here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Of course, we put these out after the fact where you can listen to these on your favorite podcast platform, on the go and on the move. So it is going to be a doozy of a show with these two gentlemen here, as in the cool down, we're actually going to be heating things back up with the QB1 talk and our offensive coordinator. Where is Washington going to go with that offensive coordinator? All that's going to be in the cool down. For the game, we have a special guest. That's AJ Perez of Front Office Sports is going to be joining us, and we're going to talk about what's going on with the sale of the team. Lots of info coming out on that, and AJ Perez is the one in the know. So we'll be talking with him directly here on Ref the District as far as that's concerned. Here in the warm-up, sponsored by the Sky Bar. Head down to Lexington, Virginia, meet Trev in person, and drop Ref the District. Your first drink is free. That's at the Sky Bar in Lexington, Virginia. In the warm-up that they are sponsoring today, it is the NFC East is well represented in the divisional round, minus the Washington Commanders. Just how far behind are we? That's the question for our warm-up. It sucks seeing all three of our division rivals this far into the playoffs. I figured the Giants were going to win. I picked them to win. I picked Dallas to lose, but it wouldn't have been nice to only have to root against the Eagles this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I'm different from you guys. I kind of like it. It's kind of, we won 8 games and missed the playoffs by basically a half a game in the toughest division in all of the NFL. We were a half a game away from being there in those playoffs. So it's a badge of honor to see those 3 teams that finished ahead of us. They're all still thriving in the playoffs. And we did fairly well against them, right? 1-1 against Philly, 1-1 against Dallas, 0-1 against the Giants. So I think it's kind of a badge of honor. I don't know why you guys are hating on it so much.
I don't see this as that sounds like a very college way of taking it, right? You're a Florida guy, and so if the SEC does well in the bowl games, you're like, hey, this is good for us because it shows that our conference is difficult and all that. Yeah. No one really should care about that. I think the NFL. I don't want to see these guys do well.
Nah.
It sucked when the Eagles won their first Super Bowl, because that was one thing we got to lord over them.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was taken away from us. And then the Giants with Eli Manning and calling them mid, and they go on these 2 amazing runs against Super Bowls. It's not good. And I definitely do not want to go into the offseason with the Cowboys being successful in the postseason. They're annoying. Fans are annoying as it is. And if we give them any more victories, that just makes them even worse. Yeah, Trev, where do you stand on this one?
Yeah, I'm not a badge of honor. You can keep that badge, Stoner. I don't need that one. It's embarrassing. That's, to me, it's like, oh well, we lost to the Giants and tied the Giants when we should have beaten them. We beat Philly once, we beat Dallas once. Why can't we be there too? It's not fair. I want to be at the big dance too. Yeah. And just their fan bases. They're all 3 teams are arch rivals. I don't know how it is for other teams, other divisions, but for this division, every team is an arch nemesis / rival. So it's like, why do you want to root for any one of them, no matter who they're playing? Because they're coming from the same place that you're coming from, the NFC East. So I don't like it.
So what if the Cowboys go to the Super Bowl?
Oh, gross.
I'm just saying. I mean, we don't want them to, right? But you can say
you might, badge of honor.
Michael says that he's okay with the Cowboys being stomped in the Super Bowl.
So what happens? Okay, what do you mean? Go ahead, Stoner.
I was just saying if they make it to the Super Bowl and we don't want them to win that part, right? But you can say we whooped their tails in the last game of the year. We're the ones that scared them straight, right? Or if the Eagles do it, we're the ones that turn their season around and cause them to change their defensive philosophy in order to stop the run and go out and get a couple of better guys. We're the ones that cause them to get to where they are.
All right, Nathan, hold on.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds an awful like a lot like the Heineke Hive, where they're like, he almost beat Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
and Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl. That's
restart the show, because I don't know where Stoner is, because whoever this guy up here is not Stoner. So let's restart the show. Come back.
Let's reboot.
No, what are you talking about?
I'm not saying that I want them to win.
You don't have to.
That I like that they're there, but there is some gravitas to us having looked at them and change their season and cause them to say, we got to fix what we're doing because we lost to them Commanders.
So we should give some of that. We should get some of that Super Bowl trophy and memorabilia and championship then, if that's what you're saying.
Hey, that's what I said last week on last week's show. If Philadelphia wins it all, then maybe Scott Turner should get some of that piece of that trophy because he ran the ball so much on them that he forced them to change their entire defensive philosophy.
Well, now he'll get it by himself because he's not with us anymore, so it's irrelevant.
Right. I guarantee you, no one cares about that footnote in history of they won the Super Bowl, but they did lose to the Washington Commanders. No one's
about 6 weeks ago. Remember that? It didn't mean anything. Yeah, I remember that.
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to give you kind of a devil's advocate side to it, so that because we could all just sit here and say, yeah, it sucks that all three of them in. Next topic. I'm just trying to give you like a
sure. Now he's trying to say
I will give you this, Stoner. We were this close to making it where all four teams are in the playoffs.
That's right.
That would have been cool.
Trout here was talking about that 2024 divisional round, all four NFC East teams. That would be something. We almost had all four NFC East teams in the playoffs. Washington, if the thing is if they went 1-1 against each of their division rivals, and they went 1-1 against the Giants. If that was 1-1 like Philadelphia and Dallas, they're in the playoffs.
We'd have been
there. And then we'd probably get crushed by San Francisco the same way the Seahawks did. But that leads me to this part. Well, Stoner, hold on. That leads me to the next part, which is just how far behind these teams are we? Are we looking at 2024, like Trout's saying here in the comment section, where we're in the playoffs with the rest of the division, or are we going to get further and further behind? Now, I know that's very early to decide because we haven't hit the real off season yet, but where is this team at?
In the words of Ron Rivera, quarterback.
Yeah, sure.
That is literally what is missing.
Absolutely, 100%.
I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to get into the QB1 talk. I'm being serious. Think about it. For what it's worth, Dak Prescott is a good QB, and they have a stout defense. Mm-hmm. For what it's worth, Daniel Jones is an improved quarterback this year, and they have a scrappy defense. The defensive line is pretty nice.
Jalen Hurts.
And then who else is there? Jalen Hurts. Mm-hmm. And then the playmakers and defense he has around them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's also quarterback / maybe coaching / offensive play calling / coordinator. But for the most part, outside of X's and O's, it's quarterback. They all three have a quarterback of their franchise, or at least of some, longer than 1 year and continuity at that position. Unlike us, we're changing. It's revolving door at our position.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Yeah. And we're this close, and we're this close to being there or even past that. We even said last year, coming into this year, we thought with a 7-win team against that schedule last year, that you come into this year and presumably you had a better quarterback with Carson Wentz, and and you had an easier schedule.
Right.
Presumably you should have won more than 8 games. And so you would be there, but for the quarterback position, of course. And so they've got to fix that and fix a few other things to get even further. But yeah, we're right there with the powers of the NFC. 3 of the last 4 teams are in our division, which we're close, but we're not close enough.
Yeah, but I just think that I don't think we're falling backwards or anything like that, or we're going to be monumentally behind, like Gus Bus is saying here. But I do feel like we need next season to be successful. Otherwise, it is going to feel like we're that much further behind. Could you imagine if, again, all three teams next year make the playoffs and Washington's 6-10 or worse? Then it's going to feel like quarterback isn't going to solve it. We are several pieces away, and obviously we know that we're more than a few pieces. You talk about the offensive coordinator. We need a better offensive line, which is what Michael's saying in the comment section as well. We need a line to protect whoever's going to be QB1 next year. So I just don't want to see them be any more successful than what they have been, and because it just seems like that gap will be even further.
Yeah.
Well, but then they can pull a St. Louis Rams and Los Angeles Rams and have a huge
how are you guys
hangover.
Showing your age. Well, here's a question that I was pondering on Saturday during those games when Dallas was blowing out Tampa Bay and so on. Oh. Would you rather
way too much joy in that, by the way?
Because I called it as soon as the end of the Washington Dallas game when we whooped up on them. I said Dallas is still going to beat Tampa. Dallas is still a better team.
You did,
and you knew they were. You guys were you're all on your feels. But
I can't root for the Cowboys no matter what.
I know. I'm not saying root for them, but make a little money off them.
Yeah, I would have put money against them, so I'm glad I didn't, because they would have ruined my day twice.
Yeah. But my question is, would you rather be, for example, the Buccaneers, who barely get into the playoffs and then get just crushed by the Cowboys, or would you rather be Washington, who barely misses the playoffs and doesn't get in at all? Who would you rather be? Would you rather be the team that doesn't get in, or would you rather be the team that gets in and gets just absolutely shellacked in the first?
You always chip in a chair. You want to be there, because you don't know what's going to happen when you make the playoffs. You
could be the Jaguars.
Yeah, absolutely. Come back from 27 points down to win at home. I mean, you just need a chip in a chair. And so I don't understand, especially when it comes to look at Washington this year, right? The difference between, the winning that Dallas game and not winning it was 2 picks total. And some people still would have wanted to lose to Dallas for two positions up in the draft. It's not 2 draft picks, but it's 2 positions, closer to the first overall pick. They wanted to lose for that. And it would have been the same thing if Washington makes the playoffs and then gets, like you said, shellacked. Then all of a sudden, instead of the 18th, or they would have been if they lost like this 14th or 16th pick, they're picking 18. And it's like, no, that's at that point in the draft. It's not like picking 1 to picking 8. It's picking 14 to 16. There's not that big of a jump and player typically at that. Then it really does matter, the name that you're picking and the fit for the team.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't understand the people who are like, no, I'd rather have not made the playoffs and been higher in the draft, or not have won the game against Dallas and been higher in the draft. No, you want to win. You want to celebrate.
I totally agree. I don't understand why there are those out there who would just rather. I mean, there's people when they were 1-4 just said lose every game so you can get a top draft pick or whatever. How much fun is it to sit there week after week and just root for your team to lose just so you can have a chance at a guy that you still don't know is going to work out, i.e. Chase Young, i.e.
Oh my God,
i.e.
Stop putting Chase Young in there. It's really worked out.
I'm saying not yet. He has.
All right,
sure. I mean, how many people were excited about Baker Mayfield at first overall, or Kyler Murray? And these guys aren't necessarily going to be the answer. And
Zach Wilson, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota. I mean, you can just go on and on and on about these guys who are picked 1 and 2 overall. Carson Wentz. These are just so many that don't work out. It doesn't matter where you pick in the draft. You just have to pick properly. But people will just say, let's lose and lose. But I can't. I'll never. That's loser talk to me. I'll never be able to endorse that mindset.
What if you're 3-10?
Well, I think that's probably a little bit different. I wouldn't endorse trying to lose. I might endorse playing the young guys and see what happens, but not trying to lose.
Yeah.
It's different in football. There are others. In basketball, it's different, right? In the NBA, one guy can turn around an entire franchise and can completely change everything. And it might be a 5-person draft where there are 5 guys that are good, and then after that, you don't have anybody.
It's pretty much every NBA draft is that way, right? Like there's like 4 or 5 guys, 4 or 5 guys that could be potentially changing your franchise's trajectory, and then the rest is just like this is going to be a role player.
Right. So in the NBA, one guy can go out there and he can dominate a game on both sides, right? They play offense and they play defense and can change your fortunes around. But in the NFL, it's not that easy. One guy can be great, but he cannot necessarily turn your franchise around. So why tank for somebody who you just don't know is going to work out?
Yeah.
Gus Bus, this is a very touchy subject here. As
get him out of here.
As two of the people on this podcast are not fans of Moneybags Beal.
Kawhi Leonard Jr.
So for our audio listeners, Gus Bus says, "Yeah, just like Bradley Beal has done wonders for us."
Get him out of
Washington town. Wizards. Yeah, the NBA is different than the NFL, and then I still just want my teams to win. I want my teams to be successful. I can't bring myself to be excited about a loss. Like even if it means that higher draft pick. It's as Gregory had said earlier, the draft is all a crapshoot. It's going to be who's to say the difference between picking 1 and picking 2, where we got Chase Young, that Chase Young didn't end up being this generational talent within the first 3 years and didn't get injured, and he's logging all these double-digit sacks. Or maybe they take a Tua or a Herbert, as Stoner keeps trying to do his revisionist history here. And maybe those guys don't work out here. You just never know what it's going to be like year to year. And so
when you just
want to be happy.
That's right. Week to week, you don't want to sit there and say, I hope my team loses this week. In the end, whatever their record is and whatever draft position they get, let's do the best that you can with that. But if you look at the quarterbacks who are in the final 8 right now, and they kind of run the gamut of draft picks, you've got the 1-1s, you've got the Joe Burrows and the Trevor Lawrence in there. But you've also got Mahomes, who was the 10th pick, right? You've got Herbert, who was, I believe, 6th. Daniel Jones was 4th.
7th, I think.
7th, something, like that. But then you've got Jalen Hurts, who's a 2nd rounder. Dak was a 4th rounder. Brock Purdy, that whole thing's an outlier, whatever. He was a 6th round or 7th rounder, last pick of the draft. But that's a little bit of an outlier.
No.
It is an outlier because they started the season with a quarterback who was drafted in the 1st round, number.
It's not 3. How you start, it's about how you finish.
I know, but I'm just saying that's an outlier. He's not going to be there next year as the starter.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
He's unless there's still an injury that's lingering.
Bro,
he's not going to be QB1.
Or unless
they go to the Super Bowl, he's starting quarterback next year.
I mean, Jimmy G
is gone.
Listen, Jimmy G went to a Super Bowl and they drafted Trey Lance the next year.
Yeah, because Jimmy G was injury prone, but now they didn't know that Trey Lance was injury prone too. So now they're screwed themselves out of both quarterbacks.
The point is, they're not going to just turn the team over to some 7th rounder.
If you go to the Super Bowl and you don't make him QB1,
yeah, I don't think they will unless they win the Super Bowl.
Getting fired.
That's
command this podcast in the chat right now.
Yeah, I'll put
$1 on it.
Brock Purdy is QB1 next year, bro. If they go to the Super Bowl, that's not even a thing.
Let me reel us back in, because last time I checked, this was a Washington Commanders discussion.
See what he does?
I was just trying to talk about
these are the kind of conversations that we have normally offline. What we were talking about, gentlemen, if you remember,
I don't.
Was Washington Commanders in relationship to the 3 division teams that are
quarterback
in the playoffs right now. Yeah. You're saying quarterback, and a couple people are pointing to potentially having Mahomes and Trevor Lawrence being those one guys that turn around their franchise. Is that really what could potentially happen here as Washington drafts the guy? You said, Trev, earlier, quarterback, right? That's what Ron Rivera said. Do you really think getting the quarterback that would turn around. Maybe Sam Howell turns into, this prolific guy who is supposed to be, as we hear all the time, drafted in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's enough to turn around this Washington franchise?
It's got to be, bro. I mean, look what he did against the Cowboys last game of the season with a rookie quarterback who's never played in the NFL before. What did he do? He scored 26 points. Yeah, the defense had a pick 6, but he beat the Dallas Cowboys. You saw what Taylor Heineke did coming off the couch with the weapons around him. He led us to NFC East Championship during COVID, and he, got us a winning streak. So, it's kind of clear that if we have a competent quarterback back there, we can get things done. We can make things happen. We have the weapons on offense. We have a okay defense that can improve, but we have the pieces there to once make us a top-ranked defense. The 2 out of 3 years Rivera's been there. So outside of the X's and O's and the nitty-gritty stuff, it's clearly quarterback. You don't need a Pat Mahomes. You don't need a freaking Josh Allen. Trent Dilfer won the Super Bowl with a stout defense. Jimmy G got there being injury prone and barely throwing 20 touchdowns a season. So, you don't need – some teams don't need, these superstar quarterbacks. Now, the teams that did have it, they didn't have the pieces beforehand. They got their guy quarterback, saw what he can do, and built around him. We didn't know who Travis Kelce really was till Pat Mahomes got there. Sky Moore, he's doing pretty much better. He made Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill was fast, but now look, Tyreek Hill went and got a bag because of.
I mean, that's the difference between Alex Smith dinking and dunking and Patrick Mahomes taking deep shots.
We got Chase Young, we got John Allen, Daron Payne, Cam Crow, we got Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, Gibby, Brian Robinson. We have the pieces already. Now it's just the missing link is quarterback. I just think
we could have a 30-minute argument about that, Trev, because I totally disagree. I mean, you can have a quarterback that can get you close, but 9 times out of 10, maybe it's not 9 times out of 10, it's 8.5 times out of 10. You need that quarterback to win a Super Bowl. If you just look at the history of Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, they were all franchise quarterbacks. Not all. But we got 8.5 out of 10 were franchise quarterbacks.
But you
have a Nick Foles and a Trent Dilfer and maybe a Joe Flacco, although he was a franchise quarterback, right? Yeah. But otherwise, you've got Brady and Mahomes and Staubach and Bradshaw and Aikman, and you know what I mean. You have Hall of Famers up and down who win the Super Bowl. But like I said, we could have a 30-minute conversation on that. We don't want to go too far, but yes, they need something better than an average quarterback.
I mean, that'll help.
But San Francisco's an outlier. They could win it all with the 7th round Mr. Irrelevant. They could, and it would be an amazing story, and it would be the biggest outlier in the history of sports, probably. But I don't think
bigger than an undrafted free agent who bounced around and was bagging groceries in Iowa. I mean, they did make a movie about him.
Yeah, I mean that's big, but also I don't believe he did it his first year.
No,
he was there for a few years before that.
He was not. Yeah, he wasn't a rookie. Like I said, he bounced around. We got ourselves a big donation from our friends over at the Command This Podcast. Thanks for the $9.99 donation here on the Super Chat. Always open because you are, in fact, our 4th sponsor. Command This Podcast says if we bring in a former starter, Carr. We are in the same scenario. We go from the Heineke Hive to the Howlers. I'd roll with Sam and keep Payne. This fan base will yell for Sam after the first interception.
Yeah,
that,
man.
My friend, is going to be a conversation we're going to be having in the cool down. Yes. We were talking about here in the warm-up about where Washington stands with their division rivals all being still in the playoffs in that divisional round. We appreciate everyone being in the chat right now. Graham, Gus Bus, TJ Too Nasty. We mentioned Trout, Gregory, Joshua, and even our man AJ Perez is in the chat. In fact, he's going to be right here on the channel with us to talk about the sale of the franchise and where we are and what's going on with Dan Snyder. That's coming up right here, right now on The Game.
The Game is brought to you by Pacers Running Stores. Pacers has 5 stores in Northern Virginia and DC. For the best running footwear, apparel, and gear, just stop by or schedule a virtual fitting with the best running experts in the business. Pacers Running exists to help as many people as possible through running. For every run, it's Pacers running.
Pacers running a great store, taking care of you, getting those resolutions set right. Pacers running for every run. Hit them up there, right there, online or one of their stores in person. They'll get you fitted to the right shoe to make sure that you are walking or running your way through 2023. This discussion coming up here is going to be one that's going to be very informative. We'll give our opinions here and there, but we are bringing in the expert himself. If you've read anything about Dan Snyder and the sale of this team, it is likely because of this man right here. It's AJ Perez from the Front Office Sports that we're bringing to the channel. We appreciate you coming on. I'm going to hit that applause button. There we go. We appreciate you, AJ,
awesome.
Coming on here on Ref the District. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Saw you in the comment section talking about some of the San Francisco stuff that they dovetailed off of our Washington Commanders talk. What's your take on the playoffs and the Brock Purdy situation that they were talking about?
It's amazing. I mean, the Trey Lance was just a weird draft pick. He didn't even have one full season, I think, as a starter, and they kind of rolled with him and all the injuries, and they could look where they're at. And it's pretty amazing. I don't know if it's this story is going to continue on for Purdy and the Niners, but they're a pretty well coached team all around. They've been able to fill in the gaps. When Deebo Samuel went down, I mean, they kept going. They got him back late in the season. So yeah, I mean, they're their offense or defense. They're one of the teams out of the NFC for only 4 of them left. But yeah, they're going to be it's going to be fun to watch what they do this weekend.
Yeah, I can only imagine what pairing a great offense or good offensive scheme could do with a good young defense. It's just something we can only imagine here in DC. One of the things that we've been imagining over the last, let's say 6 to 8 months is Dan Snyder no longer being a part of the franchise. But some news kind of broke this week there, AJ, on it might not be a full sale. Could you give us a little hope or a little insight of what's going on right there?
No, it'll be at least a half. It looks, as far as what Bank of America's been telling the potential bidders, it'll be at least half, because it has to be, because Snyder owns, when his mother died last year, she owned some of the team. So Snyder bought out the co-owners in 2021, got the debt waiver that March of that year. And it was able to control pretty much all of it at that point. We don't know if it's 90% or 95%, but he owns pretty much all the team. And so, to become a controlling owner, the person with the most, you have to have at least 30%. In this situation, you would need the next owner would need around half. We don't know exactly. It's 49%, 50%, 51%. They would need that much to control the team. But yeah, from everything everyone I've talked to, it's going to be, if not a full sale, it's going to be a very, very high percentage that's going to be sold. And now things could change. There's always those people who think, and I had that in my very first story that came out last November. This past November, when they announced the sale or potential, whatever, exploring options, whatever the statement was. There were people, because it was actually some of the same people were telling me that they're worried about Sarver with the Suns doing the same thing after his year suspension. He's not going to get enough money for it. The difference here is Snyder owns so much of the team, where Sarver owns maybe a third to 40% of the Suns. Even though he's a controlling owner, he has many, many more partners. So I think that's where he would go, after that year suspension. And things changed there when PayPal threatened to pull their jersey sponsorship. So I think that and then we saw how much, some of the bids coming in were pretty high for the Suns. And the same, while the bids here for the Commanders aren't the $8 billion, some speculated, not those aren't the people I talked to, but some of the people who speculated are going up to $8 billion. Which I thought it was very strange, because you have to build a new stadium. You have to, and that's going to take at least $3 billion. And that's, you have to sell the land and put it towards a new stadium. You have to sell the Ashburn land where the team headquarters is now. You have to, and the area, or the many acres they own around FedEx so that's, it's going to cost a lot of money. Even at 6.3, you're looking at closer to $10 billion when you figure a stadium in.
Good night.
If only we had enough money to put in a bid ourselves, right?
I know, right?
Yeah.
We're going to start a GoFundMe and we'll take over ownership of them. But you were talking about kind of the how much of the team that he would possibly sell. Is there a possibility that if he only wanted to sell a minority interest in the team, a 20% or whatever, would the other owners have to approve that? Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any
and say no.
Any kind of owner, and yeah, from what this is people I've been talking to the last couple of months since this whole thing broke, is that you have to get 24 votes for either even for a minority owner, any kind of owner coming into the league, and it's not just the controlling owner. So there's I think the path towards that I think is a lot tougher than to getting him removed. So I think it'll be a lot easier to block a minority owner than it will be to remove Snyder. I still it's still that's all on hold. I think there's two things. The sale has to go through and or he backs out, I guess. And then there's the other investigations, including the second NFL investigation that's still ongoing, led by Mary Jo White, the former head of the SEC.
So a report came out that Jeff Bezos has not put a bid in yet, and neither has the I guess, and then the Chelsea FC owner kind of backed out too. And now Josh Harris, the part owner of New Jersey Devils, Sixers, NBA team. Anything to report on that? Is that like a real thing, or is that just some smoke?
Oh no. I think JP Finley is pretty accurate with this reporting. I think it's funny. You can see that we're talking to different people because we're getting different things, but they all kind of all mesh together. So I think I mean, there's a certain group of owners that of other sports. So you got the Blitzer and Harris own the Devils and the Sixers. And Boley owns like part of the Lakers, Dodgers, Sparks, and also owns Chelsea. So these owners in different sports, these super rich owners, they were all involved for the Broncos sale too. Because whenever a sports franchise becomes available, they actually they go out and kick the tires. That's why you see many of the same names, including the ones that have no shot, like Byron Allen, kind of coming up in these conversations. And now, Byron Allen's name has not come up since that's it's because and he's rich and he's a businessman and very successful, but you need $2 billion, even at 6.3, that's a little less than $2 billion. If you're going to buy the entire team, you have to have 30% in cash, basically, liquid. And that's hard for even prior sales, even these super rich people who bought sports franchises, they've had to go to banks to finance the other part just to make themselves available or have the cash available for that NFL purchase. The NFL is the only one that does it this way. And I think it probably needs to change because they're basically running out of billionaires at this point.
Now you mentioned about the need for the voting of either the minority or majority owner. Something else that we're kind of hearing right now, and Jerry Jones has been one of Dan's best friends. He seems to be backing away. What's the sentiment you're hearing in regards to Dan Snyder and his ownership on that level? Because it seems like more and more people are distancing themselves in preparation for him in this investigation or sale on the team.
One of my leaked sources, you guys remember when they played in Dallas this year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they had that photo up there.
Mm-hmm.
One of my sources down there was like, hey, was Jerry Jones smiling in any of those photos? And he wasn't.
He was not.
Even at I've covered the last 3 owners meetings. And Jerry Jones still, even though he didn't want to talk about this much he was the last owners meeting last month in Dallas, outside Dallas. He's been a big ally. He told Jared Bell from USA Today, the story that just came out, you're right. He did back off. And, when I talked to Jerry in March of last year at one of the owners meetings, that, he was still backing up. Dan should be here. He has the right to be here. Tanya's great, but we want Dan back, kind of stuff. And, he wasn't, something, but I think there's been a change in Jerry. There's been a gradual change in a lot of owners over the last year. And just with all the investigations and all the and all the scandals and everything, all the lawsuits and all the noise, and they're getting they have grown tired of it. And that was first reported by Mike Florio before the Super Bowl last year, that there was a move afoot. I still, even right now, I don't know if there's 24 owners to throw Snyder out. That, like I said before, it's all on hold until the sale either goes through or something happens with it, and then the NFL investigation coming out.
You were talking about Bezos earlier, and he's the sexy name, right? Because everybody knows him, and he's got more money than God, and he can basically do what he wants. Is there something strategic, according to your sources and the people you talk to? Is there something strategic about him not putting in an early bid, or is he just not interested?
I think there's still interest, but I think he's, he doesn't want. He's a smart guy. He doesn't want to overpay. If he has to pay a couple $100 million more, is it worth it? I mean, knowing what you have to do, and if Seattle comes on the market next year, whenever, that team has a stadium. It's fairly new. He has closer ties to Seattle than he does to DC, even though he has a huge house in the district. And obviously the Washington Post and Amazon, even though he's not the CEO anymore. Amazon has that that growing campus out in Arlington.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know the bank, Bank of America wants him in. I think I don't think a lot of the other contenders do not, because he will set the market. He can set the market anytime he wants. He can come in and throw down whatever he wants. But this whole animosity towards that JP and others have reported, and I've heard the same, that just over the Washington Post, which he's owned for almost a decade. And the constant reporting and the fair reporting, that I don't, Snyder just doesn't like that. And I think that's one of the reasons why, and I actually broke the story nearly 2 years ago about one of the lawyers for Bezos reaching out about the 40% that ended up not going to Bezos, it didn't go to the Clear Lake Capital people either. And those two, the Clear Lake people are actually involved in the bidding as well for the team.
So AJ, let's imagine the sale goes through, I guess, by like March league year. What's the timetable for new ownership with a franchise? I was too young to, when Dan Snyder took over for Washington. So how long would it take for new ownership to be in effect? Are they already building a staff? Or are they trying to bid
especially
time? So
especially because we're hearing that the sale's happening soon. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And how long is this?
That they're not going to make any football moves because the sale's happening. So what if everything happens and we sell a team in March? What happens?
Yeah, well, if there is an outside shot that there could be a vote at the March owners meeting. That's end of March, in the Phoenix area, in the same place as the Super Bowl or near the Super Bowl site. So there's a shot. There's a little if everything comes together the next couple of weeks and there's one candidate and the vetting process has gone through, and that person has the money and that person's seen some of the financials of the team and wants to go forward, they put that application into the NFL Finance Committee. Now the NFL Finance Committee will do some basic vetting, maybe a little more than basic vetting, and they will make a recommendation. They don't approve, they don't turn down a prospective owner at that point. Then that report goes to the full ownership, and that's where the 24 votes minimum comes in. I don't put a timetable on these things because it's we've seen, while some sales like the Carolina Panthers move fairly quickly. There's been the Broncos one drag on a long time. That was partially because of the family infighting and the lawsuits there. But yeah, so there's I would say, I think by May or June if we should have, there could be a vote. They're usually called these ownership votes are often called like we had in August with Walton and the Broncos. All the owners flew into Minnesota to vote. And then right before the start of I think it was right before the start of the season. Yeah. So that's what we're probably looking at. There is still a shot they could be. We'll know the name, we'll know who it is, and they'll be moving forward at that point. But that's still it. I don't put timetables on this stuff because these things can take time, and there could always be kind of a hiccup or something where that delays the whole timeline or a quick sale.
Well, you mentioned we had the first round of biddings there, $6.3 billion, coming in a little bit lower than some people's estimates. When would a second bidding happen, and how much would it go up?
That's a good question because I've been Bank of America's been really silent about that, and I don't know. We could be in it right now. We could be at the end of it right now. But that's all fluid. I mean, the Bank of America is tasked with getting the most money they can for Snyder, as long as Snyder is willing to sell. And it looks like from him not going to the last 2 games as has been reported or at least speculated on. I didn't see him there for the finale. I went down to the field, tried to peek into his box, and couldn't really see much. But
he's probably in England. He does list his residence there in England. So.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. I mean, Snyder, he hasn't talked to the media in about 8 years, but he's always at the games. I mean, that's when that's that was a major sign to me, at least, that he's no longer going to the games, and he hasn't been to an owners meeting since before the pandemic. And there's certain signs there that if you put them all together, it looks like he's checked out. I'm not saying that he has, but there's certainly a few people who feel that way.
So here's my last question for you, AJ. I love all this insight that you're giving us because this is stuff that we just hear rumors and all that, but you and your team there at Front Office Sports are doing real investigation and research and all that. So again, we appreciate you coming on. But what does you mentioned earlier a little bit, but what effect does the Mary Jo White investigation have on the sale? Do you think they could be actually having these discussions behind closed doors and say, wait till after the sale to release it or something to that effect?
Well, we actually asked Goodell that back in a few weeks ago at the last owners meeting. Goodell said she's on her own timetable. If you look back to how the Panthers sale went, obviously Richardson had his own issues, which were very serious, where that basically forced him to sell, and he was the founding owner of that team. But they didn't drop. He had picked Tepper, and then the report came out. So Tepper hadn't been approved yet by the. It was pretty much a rubber stamp at that point, but he hadn't had the vote of full ownership yet. He hadn't taken control of the team yet. Now, could that play out here in the same way? Possibly. The league keeps saying that she's on her own time, her own timetable, and it's been 11 months now since she started the investigation, and she's investigating 2 things: that the incident that Johnston, the former team employee, said at a work event that happened about 7 or 8 years ago, and then the other thing she's investigated was a story that we broke about the financial improprieties about possibly holding back ticket revenue from the league. And obviously there's been 2 settlements, or there's been 1 settlement with Maryland. Virginia is still going on with their investigation, and then we have those 2 lawsuits out of DC.
So of the bidders, I don't know if you can reveal, you don't have to reveal names or not, but do you find that it's more like people who own sports teams or have ownership in that, or people like Bezos line who just own billion-dollar companies? And what do you think is the best fit? Or is it just really just about who has the most money?
I pretty much I've kind of don't even have it confirmed all 6 names, but four of the names, 2 of the names, Blitzer and Harris, obviously with the Devils, and the Sixers, the Clear Lake Capital people, they're not totally all into sports ownership yet. So I think this is their big inroad into it. And there's a couple other bidders that that haven't become, that we don't know. John Henry could be one of them, the owner of the Red Sox. But there's a lot of there could be a couple surprise names that we don't know about. And it takes a lot to. I've been working on it, but it takes a lot to nail that stuff down. So we don't know the full the full list. We know some of the names, but there could be a couple, late entries. And just because he didn't bid in the first round, as we saw with Bezos, he could still come in at any time if he wants it to. So I'm sure Snyder is selling the entire team, or at least a lot of it. He's going to want the most money, because that's why, him even keeping a 10% or 20% stake, minority owners in sports have no say. Dan Snyder did pay dividends to the other co-owners before he bought them out for many years, but even that's kind of rare. I mean, you're just kind of a silent partner, and you have an equity, you have your name's out there, but you get tickets, I'm sure, and maybe get free gear or something. But you really don't have much, and it's hard to sell, and that's why we saw he paid $900 million, or about $850-900 million in March 2021 to buy out 40%. Now look what the team's going for now. That he'd be facing the same situation if he wanted to sell if he keeps a minority stake. If he wants to get out eventually, he's not going to get dollar for dollar. He'll get maybe 50 cents on the dollar from what he would get now selling the entire team.
Okay. Was that a big part of, how big of a part, I guess, is that for the sale of the team, is that he ended up buying out those minority owners? Like you said, kind of the minority owners don't really have any control over everything, but he went out of his way to kind of gain nearly 100% or 100%, close to it anyways. How is that impacting the sale of the team right now?
It probably is. I would say it's, they wanted to get out, and they wanted to get out for a long time, those three co-owners. Fred Smith, obviously, the head of FedEx, forced that name change. I mean, that's why they became the Washington football team.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one that forced that was a lot of power to. So normally co-owners don't have that power, but he was able to use the FedEx sponsorship of the field and being a co-owner to force that name change. Which is something that Dan Snyder said he would never do. Dan Snyder said he would never sell as well. So, and here we are. So that's that I think I think it's a little easier to get everybody on board when you're the only person who owns at least 90% of the team. You can make the decisions, and you're also going to reap the most benefits.
That's fair. Well, we appreciate you, AJ, coming out here. This is AJ Perez of Front Office Sports. On the way out, could you just give us maybe like the juiciest prediction or thought that you might have based on the Washington Commander sale?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. I don't do predictions on this stuff, but I think the fans who were freaking out over my story yesterday about the percentage, I'm like, as far as we know right now, he's selling the team. That could change. I would just let the sale process happen. I wrote last week about, the team. Obviously Turner got fired, but other than that, we're going to be kind of stagnant. And it's probably going to go through the draft with all the same personnel. They're going to be tasked with the draft, the combine, and the draft. So, and because there's a decent chance by the draft there's a new owner, maybe not in place yet, but one will know. And he may not be officially approved by ownership yet. But I think by the draft, which is in April, I think there's going to be we'll have a very clear sign of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Hope is on the horizon there. This is AJ Perez from Front Office Sports. You can catch him by AJ Perez right there on Twitter. AJ, thank you again for joining us here on Ref the District.
Thanks for having me.
All right, AJ, appreciate you.
Thank you, AJ.
Sure.
That was a lot of good insight there from Front Office Sports. Again, you're going to have to, if you have not read those articles by AJ, you're going to want to get out there and do that because he provides a lot more insight in there. We appreciate him jumping on. And like I said, I think that there's still hope on the horizon.
Oh yeah.
Right? Even if it's not 100% of the sale, he's going to be a minority owner. We're never hearing from him again.
Right.
What's happening.
You're right. We'll probably never hear from him again. I think one of the biggest. Go ahead, Trev.
When do we start making floats and getting bands and?
Yeah, because we got to have a parade
and color guards
coming soon. Oh, it's going to be a Washington Commanders holiday for when that officially happens. Which is
that day.
We're going to be in the parade.
Let's get a float. Let's get our own float. That'd be great.
Bro, let's do it.
I'm going to take this a different angle. Obviously, we all kind of want Dan Snyder gone because of all the improprieties. We've talked with the ladies who went up and stood up in front of Congress and everything. So we're kind of a little bit more emotionally invested in it. There's some fans out there who could care less that Dan Snyder owns the team. They only care about the product on the field. Is there anything? I don't want you to necessarily direct it towards them, but could you maybe give me some thoughts on those people who don't care who the owner of the team is?
All right. Well, outside the obvious wrongdoings that the investigations and who he's being investigated.
Well, that's part of it. So you can't say outside of it.
Well, that's the obvious.
Okay.
That's for somebody but nobody wants to come play for this organization if he's the head guy. I really think that has an impact on free agency. I think it has an impact on trade values and this and that. I think him being in the office has a lot to do with the product on the field. Not necessarily 50%, 60%, but there's definitely a hand in there. Definitely a hand in there.
Yeah. Well, I think to an extent, I mean, he obviously has a lot of sway over what happens in terms of roster. And of course he has input on your front office, right? Who the GM is, who the coach is, all of that.
Yeah.
But he does have a hand in who your roster is. It's not just smoke that we hear when they talk about him making the pick for Dwayne Haskins. Okay.
No.
That's a real thing. Okay. And the Albert Haynesworth signing and in certain draft picks,
the Ron Rivera hiring,
the Carson Wentz signing, right?
Yeah.
That whole thing, it came out that Carson Wentz was a Dan Snyder deal, and Ron Rivera had said, no.
We finally have a quarterback.
Yeah. So there is something to that. Of course there is. And if you get the right guy in place, he can overcome that. But they've tried Joe Gibbs, and Joe Gibbs could do it, but only to an extent. They tried a Shanahan. They, somebody who has who seemingly can have pull over the owner. So they've tried all that things, but it's always going to be Dan Snyder meddling with the roster. And it's never going to work because it's proven.
Yeah, and Dan Snyder's tenure, I can think of 4 coaches that he's brought in with Super Bowl experience. Right? Head coaches.
Joe Gibbs, Ron Rivera, Shanahan,
and Schottenheimer, right? Schottenheimer made it to a Super Bowl.
Sure. Absolutely he did. So so there's been at least
4. Yeah, so
they couldn't overcome his meddling.
So
never should have fired Schottenheimer. That was
but really kind of the question that you brought up was how do you balance your fandom when you have an owner who's doing such horrific things, right? But if you're winning, can we overlook all that? And I'm sorry to say we probably could as fans because there are owners out there who were and are not just as bad, but do things maybe on different levels, but do really bad things. But if they're winning, it's okay.
I don't think it would necessarily be overlooked. I just don't think it would have been reported as much and brought out if we were winning.
Maybe.
I just think it's easier to sweep under the rug. It would definitely be easier to sweep under the rug as long as this team is winning. If the Pro Bowlers of '95 worked out for them in early 2000s, right? When Bruce Smith and Deion Sanders and Archuleta and even Albert Haynesworth, the first $100 million man, if those work out, which were all Dan Snyder influenced, Vinny Serrato era type things, if those work out, this is a different franchise, right? This is if Joe Gibbs 2.0, he's bringing them back to the promised land. You're right. A lot of that stuff that happened during that era, that gets unfortunately swept on the rug because they're winning a little bit more. If Dwayne Haskins, works out, that's Dan Snyder walking off his yacht to go tell the front office, you're taking this guy at 15. And if it works out, if he ended up becoming Patrick Mahomes for Washington, you're right. No one cares.
He would not have the team up for sale right now.
No,
I mean, it's very simple to say that. It's very crass to say it, but if Dwayne Haskins had worked out and become the next Patrick Mahomes, Dan Snyder would not be selling this team.
If those 6 draft picks of the Rams for RG3 would have worked out, you could say that too.
Or if RG3
if RG3 doesn't get injured and Shanahan is able to build a team. Sure enough. And Bosky points out here, and this is on Trev's note, that people don't want to come here. And Stoner says this all the time, right? You throw enough money towards it. Bosky says if they threw $100 million at you right now, you're playing for Dan Snyder.
But the problem is
fair. There is a tax. There's the Dan Snyder tax, right? There's the Washington tax that you have to pay.
But the problem is that Dan Snyder is throwing $100 million at the wrong people.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. He's not throwing it at Lamar Jackson.
And England residences and all
in terms
lawyers.
In terms of players, right? He's missed on the players.
Yeah,
he's missed on his players that he keeps throwing.
And even when he says that he's backed off and he's trusting the football people to make it, then we hear these things about him coming off the yacht. And so, and my kind of thing is, I get that we're all tired of talking about the owner. And I think that's one of the things I'm looking most forward to, is not having the owner be the story anymore. I want to focus on football. I want to do all this.
Yeah.
But when Dan Snyder and the organization that he's built has so many faults in it, and like you said, Stoner, continues to lose, to where you're kind of opening the door for people to look at, or underneath your bed, right? They're looking in your closet. They're seeing those skeletons. They
right.
looked underneath your bed and they're seeing that you didn't clean your room. You just shoved everything underneath there, and we're like, okay, we're good to go. And that's what it's like, for Dan Snyder. And it's frustrating as a fan to have to focus on that kind of stuff. Like, we don't tend to, I don't want to say have to, but I putting focus on that rather than what's on the field, because there's a lot of good things to talk about on the field. And that's what we're going to be talking about here coming into the cool down.
Can I just say that was beautiful?
The offensive coordinator and QB1, all that's coming up right here on the cool down.
The Cool Down is brought to you by Manscaped. Ever since my Nathan started using their products, I can't cool down. Fellas, trust me. Go to Manscaped right now and get 20% off and free shipping by using the code REF. Your ladies will appreciate you. Now back to Trev, Stoner, and my Manscaped man, Nathan.
I'm going to have to get myself a second lawnmower 2.0, because that thing is a smooth trimmer. I'm soon going to be retired from the Air Force. I'm going to have to keep a beard clean, and I'm going to need to, I think I'm going to get a second one. So I'll have one for here and one for there. But yeah, you can head out to manscaped.com, get your 20% off. And free shipping. Just use the code REF. That's R as in ref, E as in F, and F as in F for that 20% and free shipping. We're here on the cool down. You might have caught our video that we posted on Monday, which was our QB1 press your luck.
Oh, man.
And it was Sam Howell's turn on the rotation, which is what we're hearing now, that Ron and Marty, they're going out on this offensive coordinator search, and they're telling people Sam Howell is going to be QB1. What do you make of that, Trev?
Man, I think it's embarrassing to say it, but smart, I guess. You're kind of, because it's a strong possibility that Sam Howell is going to be QB1, no matter if they do bring a vet in or not. They're gonna have to bring in somebody else to back them up or whatever competition. And it's kind of narrowing down your search for OC to see if they can fit your system in your quarterback, rather than going to get the sexy name, as Stoner mentioned earlier, to see if they can just come in and work wonders because of his name and his resume and other places. At the same time, they're just doing their due diligence. I mean, what are you supposed to do?
What am I supposed to say?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I like it.
I think that's what they're going to end up doing. Because they're stuck. They are so stuck that we're so happy about the sale of this team, and yet the sale of this team is going to ruin the 2023 season in so many different ways when it comes to coaching and players and all of that, because you just don't know what's going on, who's writing the checks, and who you can go after, and they have their budget meeting, I guess, earlier this week, and it's not budget for the players.
Canceled. Man.
It wasn't canceled. It was, they still had it. They just weren't having the press conference about it. But they still had the meeting, but it's still, how much are you willing to spend for an offensive coordinator? Are you willing to go over, certain taxes so that you can get certain players, like on Lamar Jackson? Are you willing to spend 30% of your salary cap on one player for a quarterback and things? So because of the sale, I think it's going to be very, very basic on who they're going to sign and all of that. So it's probably going to be Sam Howell and a retread behind him, and Jake Fromm is your number 3 guy.
Stoner got himself in a little bit of trouble on Twitter with Jake Fromm. We'll talk about that probably later. I do want to clarify some of the comments that we're getting. TJ in there, Caleb in there. mentioning Sam Howell as the only QB on the roster. Technically not correct, but it does hint towards the fact that Carson Wentz is going to be cut for that cap money, which is the intelligent thing to do.
And Jake Fromm is on the roster too, by the way. He's on the 90 man.
He's
not on the 53.
Signed to a future contract, is what it was.
So he is on.
Realistically, Sam Howell is the only QB up for competition for QB1 right now.
Yeah.
So I agree that it makes sense that I don't know that I want it to be forced, right? I don't want to be telling the offensive coordinator that this is definitely going to be your QB1. Right. So if you can't work with him, then you're out. But it should be, hey, look at this guy. We want him in a QB1 competition. What could you do with him?
Sure.
That's what I would like to, that's what I'm hoping the conversations are like, because I don't know too many people, like you said, Stoner, when you're talking about there's the sale of the team that's happening. So this could be a 1-year rental that you're taking as far as an offensive coordinator who wants to move their family and their livelihood to Washington, D.C. for what could just be 1 year if a new owner comes in and cleans house.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And then also betting on like, okay, I'm going to have to take this 5th round second-year player who's got 1 game under his belt through 19 passes, completed 11 of them. Is this really worth it to make that move? Mm-hmm. Which is why I think you are seeing a lot of those retreads as far as the names. I mean, we had probably one of the top ones that I think a lot of people were kind of excited about, and this is a retread, and that's Bevel has stepped away, said he's not going to take a coordinator position. So I don't know where they're going to go with the OC thing. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But as far as the QB1 aspect and saying that Sam Howell's going to be it, I do think it's smart in some regards. I just hope that they're doing it in the smart way.
Well, what's that mean? What's the smart way?
Is saying that don't crown him QB1, saying this guy is going to be in the QB conversation. This guy is going to compete. You know, we might not go after a Lamar Jackson. We might not be going after, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, if he's available. We're not going to be, going up and getting CJ Stroud. So you're going to have Sam Howell, Baker Mayfield, Andy Dalton, one of the, Teddy Bridgewater. You're going to be having one of these guys, but more than likely Sam Howell is going to win out your QB battle. What can you do with them? I think that's a smarter way of doing it than being like, hey, if you come in here, I'm going to force you to play Sam Howell. Because who's taking that job? Who's honestly going to take that job? Now, I will say the flip side of that, Stoner, to your argument of, with everything going on, and Trev, I want you to answer this for me, is what happens if they get the right offensive coordinator? Sam Howell ends up being, like I said, this projected 1st-round pick that we hear so much about, and they go, 13-4 next season. And does even with the new owner, do you think the new owner is going to fire a coach that went 13-4 and Sam Howell's looking like the real deal, and this offensive coordinator who's no longer a 1-year rental? What happens in that situation?
Then you gotta ride, I guess, right? I don't know. That kind of forces you in at least 1 more year with Ron Rivera, because he's had 7 wins, then 8 wins, then he goes 13 wins. He was NFC's champion his first year here. I don't know.
Why are we talking about fairy tales?
Because it's a possibility. No, but I think that they're doing this too early also, because I think that Sam Howell is legit a strong possibility for being QB1. They get an OC in here to work with him now during the offseason, get him acclimated as QB1 going into the OTAs and training camp, getting him as much development as he can early enough rather than waiting until the new – I don't know. It's this organization just leaves me saying I don't know right now. I just don't know. Because they could have waited a couple of weeks to fire Scott Turner. They didn't even wait till the playoffs to start, and they got rid of Scott Turner and said, "Hey, Sam Howell's going to be QB1." That's really fast and really forward.
Well, I think you have to do that so that you have a shot at people who are available. If you wait a couple of weeks, then all these guys are going to have jobs.
And that's what because then now it's like, oh, well, then they just lost. Who just fired the offense coordinator? The Chargers. After we've already put out this, like, hey, this is da-da-da. I think we still moved a little too fast because there's still people who are going to lose their jobs. Byron Leftwich could lose his job still.
Okay.
Dan Quinn, like, I know it's not offense, but like there's still coordinators out there that are interviewing and could still be fired or released after a couple weeks have passed. So I just feel like maybe we kind of jumped the gun just a little bit.
Yeah.
But you have to at the same time.
I don't know that there's anyone out there currently who would be an offensive coordinator that you'd want that's currently employed by a team.
Well, there might
would get fired. He's saying that there's people who are going to be released. I think that the list they put out might include. I'd have to double check. Might include some people who are on playoff teams right now. Obviously, Bevel was one of them who turned the Commanders down. So those aren't people who are getting fired, though. Trev, it sounded like you're talking about people who are getting released, like maybe a Leftwich that you look out for that one. I don't know that there's any offensive coordinators that would get canned
other than Leftwich. Yeah,
other than Leftwich. And even then, I think that's a mistake.
Who was the coordinator for the Chargers? That was a dumb move, I think.
Lombardi?
Oh, God, please don't bring Lombardi here.
They score points.
Please
I like the name. I think
it's a great name.
He's got a great name.
He's been bouncing around as an offensive coordinator, and every offense that he runs that just doesn't seem to get the job done. So
tough.
You know, one of the things about Sam Howell is that, and we keep talking about Sam Howell, and I'm really down on Sam Howell, and Leftwich was not fired yesterday.
Yeah, I was about to say the reports. Yeah, the reports that they're going to let him go, but it's not. So yeah, just making sure. Red
but the whole Sam Howell thing is, look, the kid's got talent. Okay, the kid has everything that you want in a quarterback in terms of physical ability, right? We don't know what his ability is to read defenses and change plays and find open guys and go through progressions. We don't know that. There's no way of knowing that until he actually goes out there and plays. I'm just going with the odds, right? And the odds are in my favor. Right? If we were playing a game, right, and I showed you that 85% of the time I'm going to win, right, you would take me over the 15%, right?
Yeah.
And the 85% is the number of quarterbacks who do not succeed, who are drafted in the 5th round or later. And I'm making up a number, but you know what I'm saying is that it's a very high number. 85% of quarterbacks drafted in 5th round or later don't become franchise quarterbacks. It's probably even higher than that. I'm just making up that number. So I'm just going with the odds. I hope he becomes that guy that we all want him to be. I just don't see it. That's all I'm saying with Sam Howell in terms of him being, but I do see him on game 1 next year.
Yeah.
Possibly being the starting quarterback.
No,
I would bet money against it, though. I would bet money against it.
We can't do this retread thing. We can't.
Well, retread is probably going to come in and beat him out. We
can't. Well, so that's the thing, because if we get a retread and the retreads that are probably going to be listed, they're going to want some money. And we got new ownership coming in. And once again, they didn't pick that guy. So then we have to go through it all over again and let go of a savvy veteran and get rid of it and lose a whole bunch of money.
You can get a Teddy Bridgewater on a.
We don't want a damn Teddy Bridgewater. Sam Howell's better than Teddy Bridgewater. That's what I'm saying.
No, he's not.
He is.
Teddy Bridgewater is a billion times better quarterback.
Oh, you got to be
right now.
Teddy 2 gloves. The man wears gloves.
The potential is the ceiling is much
higher
than Sam Howell.
Teddy
Bridgewater is 10 times the quarterback that Sam Howell is.
You're killing me, man. You're killing me. This is worse than your Jake Fromm question.
This is purchase.
The offensive coordinator search, by the way, a lot of people keep saying the Byron Leftwich was fired. I'm scouring the internet right now.
He's not fired.
He has not been fired officially. I agree. Any mid quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, Baker Mayfield, any of these guys, I honestly, and I said this in our Monday video, right? And this is in my short. Sam Howell's going to beat them out for QB1. He's going to do it. And this is Stoner. You can think
not in a fair fight.
Yeah, it is a fair fight.
No, it won't. It won't be a fair fight because you want the young guy.
I was about to say, in Stoner's defense, it's going to be because even if he's not Teddy Bridgewater's not that much better than Sam Howell. You have more experience watching Teddy Bridgewater in the NFL. I really can't believe he said that on our channel.
Alex Smith,
I'm surprised. This is why we have 75 watchers right now. I guarantee you our likes right now are in like the 20s because of that comment right there. People can't like that.
Don't even mention Alex Smith, the Pro Bowler. Has Teddy B been a Pro Bowler? No. Keep going, Nathan.
I like Teddy Bridgewater, for the record. I liked him a little bit more before the injury. I thought that that kind of derailed his career. But we're not talking about Teddy Bridgewater specifically. We're going to probably have a whole video about that in the press your luck. When it comes to Sam Howell, you're right, Stoner. It's going to be a little bit of an unfair fight. They are leaning towards him, and so he doesn't have to be 100 times better than Teddy Bridgewater. He just needs to be on par with Teddy Bridgewater, and they're going to go to Sam Howell.
That's right.
And I believe Sam Howell is legitimately just going to beat out a lot of the mid-tier QBs that you're going to have. Metaphor saying I just unlike the video. Yeah, that was a wild take, Metaphor. Just know. In the comment section, because we usually get some comments afterwards, and I haven't done this yet, but Glasses here was on his own. There was a comment on our video Monday. They called him Glasses, and I was rolling. It was two that called him Glasses.
But seriously,
I was rolling.
Can y'all hit that like button, please?
Do hit the like button. Getting back to the conversation here. Yeah. Let's Sam Howell, QB1. That's what we're looking at right now. That's what people are saying. That's what we talked about in our video. I have him as number 3. Stoner had him as 5, and Trev, who likes the guy, had him all the way at 8. Which I thought was interesting. But we're gonna have to go through more of that press your luck to see exactly why he ended up on 8 on Trev's. But I have him as 3 because I do think he's going to be better than a lot of those other mid quarterbacks. Now, a lot of that is dependent on that offensive coordinator. And Stoner, you did the work here to look at who the Commanders are interviewing, their age and their experience. Why don't you run that down for us?
No, I didn't look at who they're interviewing and their age and all that. You can look at that. They're all a bunch of retreads. What I did is I looked at the 8 NFL teams that are left.
Okay, that's what you did.
Okay, just to get an idea. I'm not saying that the Commanders are going to sign, pull these guys away. That's insane. I'm not saying that. But just to give an idea of the 8 teams that are left, what do their offensive coordinators look like? Okay. So you've got, first of all, San Francisco, again, is an anomaly. They're out there. They don't even have officially an offensive coordinator. It's Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan, he's only 43 years old, and this is his 5th offensive coordinator job, if you count this as an offensive coordinator job. That's pretty crazy, by the way, right? Kyle Shanahan, it's his 5th different OC job. But anyway,
it's the reason why I think Scott Turner is going to be successful, by the way. I know we talked about it a little bit when we talked about him being fired. He's eventually going to earn his way back into an offensive coordinator position, and he will be successful.
I agree. I totally agree with that. Eric Bieniemy is the elder statesman. He's 53 years old, okay? But this is his first time ever being an NFL offensive coordinator. Okay? He was never an offensive coordinator before. For the Bills.
What was he last year?
Huh?
What was he last year?
I'm saying this job he has now.
It's not his first year of that he words this a little weird. It's his first offensive coordinator job. Yes, he's had it for years, but this was the first time. So he's not a retread in the sense that
he hasn't been an offensive coordinator with another team. Okay. Ken Dorsey is 41 years old for the Bills, right? This is the first time he's ever been an offensive coordinator. And this is his first year being an offensive coordinator.
Right.
Brian Callahan, who I believe is for the Bengals. Okay. He's 38 years old. And this is the first time he's ever been an offensive coordinator. Now it's his 4th year doing it, but this is the first time he's ever been an OC. Press Taylor,
Cincinnati, by the way.
Press Taylor, help me out with which team he's He might be Jacksonville.
You didn't put this in your notes?
He's not Jacksonville. Who is he for?
He is Jacksonville Jaguars.
He is Jacksonville.
Offensive coordinator.
He's 35 years old. It's his first time ever being an offensive coordinator, and it's his first year doing it. And look what he did with Trevor Lawrence this year.
Peterson probably had. I was about to say it. Peterson. That's a situation I think
OC.
that's similar to San Francisco or even Kansas City, and that's what we're hearing a lot. And this is why Bieniemy's not being picked up as a head coach. Is he doesn't call plays. He's fighting with the players, or his play calling is questionable. And so, I think that while Press Taylor might be very good on his own. Definitely not saying he's not, because Mike McDaniels, I think, is a great play caller, and he was under Shanahan. But these guys, some of these guys are getting assistance from their offensive-minded coaches.
Mike Kafka, who is the OC for the Giants, came with Daboll from the Bills. He's 35. This is the first time he's ever been an offensive coordinator.
Right.
He was the quarterback's coach. And as Daboll was the OC.
Already getting head coaching looks, too.
So it's his first year, and it's his first time being an OC. Kellen Moore for Dallas, right? Yeah. He's 34 years old, right? This is the first time he's ever been an OC. Now, he's been the OC for 4 years, but still, it's the first time he's ever been an OC. He went from the playing field to the offensive coordinator, I believe.
Yeah, he was He was a backup quarterback, and then he went to offensive coordinator.
But maybe he went 1 year as quarterback's coach or something. I don't know, but still. And then Shane Steichen, I believe is his name, for the Eagles. He's 37. Now, this is his second time being an offensive coordinator, but he was 1 year with the Chargers, I believe, in 2020 before they blew out Anthony Lynn and that squad, I believe, or he may have been with Brandon Staley. But anyway, these are all young, innovative people who have moved up through the ranks and become offensive coordinators for what? For teams that are trying to get to the Super Bowl. The last 8 teams left. That's what I want Washington to do. That's not what Washington's going to do.
No, because of who our head coach and front office is. They're all a bunch of old fogies that are living in the 80s and 90s when they played ball. Kirk Herbstreit said that today on Pat McAfee. All these teams that are left, they have coordinators that are bringing innovative systems from college and other leagues and this and that. Right. While you have people like Scott Turner, and are you still using the same offense that was successful back in Norv Turner's days, this and that, and trying to implement it in today's games. It's not working.
It's a new game.
It's a new game. You need a young, offensive, innovative mind.
Right. And that's where the head coaches are going, and that's where the OCs are going.
Yes.
Look at all these successful coaches now, and the head coaches even.
I was about to say the remaining playoff head coaches.
Peterson.
You have Peterson, who's an offensive coach, Andy Reid, who's an offensive coach, Daboll, offensive coach, Sirianni, offensive coach, Zach Taylor, offensive coach, Mike McCarthy, offensive coach, Kyle Shanahan, offensive coach. The lone member on the defense side of the ball, as far as coming up from the ranks to become a head coach, is Sean McDermott. As a defensive mind. Everybody else is an offensive mind.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it takes nowadays. It takes that offensive minded coach, the young offensive minded coordinators and quarterbacks coaches, and what does it take? Of course, it takes quarterback. But it's all got to meld together. People said it all year. The game has passed Rivera by.
Yeah, dude.
Say it, but it has.
Back then, you had more stud running backs than pass catchers. You had the Walter Paytons, the Franco Harris, the John Riggins, the Barry Sanders. Now you have the Justin Jeffersons, the Devontae Adams, the Jamar Chases, the Terry McLaurin, the Jahan Dotsons, and then you have
crazy tight ends that are just sick athletes nowadays.
And now your best running back is like Jonathan Taylor, who could be a slot receiver. Like your
best running back is your quarterback.
Exactly.
So Daniel Jones and Jalen Hurts.
The game has passed them by, and
yeah.
Until we have a new front coaching regime or staff, it's probably going to be nothing but oldies and goodies again.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it is.
So let's talk real quick about who they're looking at. And you guys talking about a lot of these retreads. What are some of the names that are being thrown out there? Obviously, Shurmur's being one of them. A lot of people are thinking it's going to be him or Zampese. Where are we at with the names as far as who they're interviewing? Do you got a list handy on that one, Stoner? Or do we got to look that one up real quick?
They've got they interviewed already Pat Shurmur, right? He's 57 years old. He's a 23-year NFL coaching vet. He's been a head coach, right? He comes from
the Giants.
his father was a head coach. I think he was a head coach, but he was a coordinator for probably 40 years. So, he's part of the good old boy network that's always going to get looks everywhere. Let's see who else already. Zampese has an interview, but has not.
He did it today.
That's right. Ken Zampese. Again, you're talking about his dad, Ernie Zampese, was a longtime assistant coach throughout the league, and he's part of the good old boy network. So you had him, and then you've got Charles London, who is the quarterbacks coach for the Falcons, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did a pretty decent job with turning Mariota into a decent running quarterback.
He catered to his skills is what he did.
Catered to his skills, right? So I don't know.
And that would fit your bill as far as he's 47.
Yeah.
He would fit your mold as a first-time offensive coordinator because he's he's been a running backs coach, quality control coach, and offensive assistants, running back coach, and now a quarterback coach. So he's not been given the reins of an offense just yet.
Yeah.
So maybe that fits your mold. Maybe not as young as some of the other ones you've listed there. But at least it's a first-time coordinator. It's seeing something different, maybe going into the mold, like you said, a lot more RPOs, a lot more use of the QB as a running back and the shorter pass.
Because he had to, right? Because he didn't have, a strong arm quarterback. Last year, he was the quarterback's coach. He had Matt Ryan. They were throwing the ball.
And what happened? He got Matt Ryan a nice hefty bag.
That's right. So
I mean, he did.
So he has some
experience
at taking what he's got and turning it into success. Yeah. Not much success, but offensive success. Right. Maybe not team success, but he did well with Ryan in Ryan's last year, and he did well with Mariota in he changed the offense, like you said, to cater to his team's needs. So he's got that going for him, I guess.
Who's that Stutesville guy that's on the list?
Yeah, I looked him up a little bit. I don't know a whole lot about him.
Was it Eric Stutesville or something?
Eric Stutesville, I believe is his name. He's the running backs coach for the Dolphins, I believe.
Yeah.
So, he's got a nice
passing game coordinator, I thought is what it was, right?
He might be.
How old is he?
He is 55.
No, next.
So he's another old guy. And I think
Marcus Brady is the guy from who is that? Who's Marcus Brady? I know it's Joe Brady, but who's Marcus Brady?
I have not heard Marcus Brady, but I can look him up real quick. Now, Joe Brady hasn't had as much success without Joe Burrow, right?
Exactly.
So, I always go back to the 90s Cowboys team, right? When they were just the greatest team I ever saw. They won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, I believe it was, right? Or 3 and 5, something to that effect. Was it because Troy Aikman was great? Or was it because the offensive line was great? Or was it because Emmett was great? Or was it because the receivers were great? Or was it because Norv Turner called a great offense? Or was it because Jimmy Johnson was a great you know what I mean? They all just kind of –
I'm going to save you some trouble. It was the offensive line being good because Emmitt Smith ran for like 3 yards a carry. Troy Aikman had pedestrian numbers by even then standards. He was a winning quarterback. He was like Alex Smith before Alex Smith. He was winning games, or Jimmy Garoppolo. He's winning games, but he's not exactly the guy who's winning the games. He's not throwing for 400 yards on a routine basis. I will give the wide receivers their credit. They were pretty good. Irvin was pretty good. But
here's one. Marcus Brady as the Philadelphia Eagles offensive consultant. The Jets are trying to get him as a offensive coordinator. They interview him too. He's 43. He was Colts offensive coordinator 21-22, the quarterbacks coach 19-20, assistants quarterbacks coach in 2018.
Carson. So he had some experience with Carson Wentz. Great. Let's bring that guy in.
And Jalen Hurts, offensive consultant.
You know what? I can promise you this.
Really?
I guarantee you this. Whoever they hire is not going to excite you. I guarantee you that. Or when I say you, I mean the fan base.
In general, yeah.
It's not going to. You're not going to be like, oh yeah, this offense is going to be awesome.
I think like a Charles London might. It's not going to excite, but it's at least a wait and see. If it's a Shurmur, a Zampese, then I agree. I think a lot of people are going to be very disgusted. I will ask for people to hold off. Let's see what they do here. I mean, you have, Joe Brady, who was not Joe Brady. Who am I thinking of? Awful defensive coordinator for us with Green Bay. Why
Joe
is
Barry.
his name?
Oh, Joe Barry.
Joe Barry. Yeah. Joe Barry, awful defensive coordinator with us. All of a sudden turned Green Bay's defense into something worth playing.
Yeah, no
joke. And so, I mean, you never know. And that's the thing with the retreads is sometimes that second time, right? We're saying Scott Turner, second time offensive coordinator, might be, much better than what he was here.
Was he offensive coordinator in Carolina?
Time. I guess he was brought on. I'd have to double check. I don't think it's important because he's no longer employed and he's not one we're looking at right now. I loved this from Michael, so I'm going to share it even with our audio listeners. Michael says, give me someone who does not run the marijuana offense. Puff, puff, pass. Yeah, that'd be preferable. Don't get stuck into that one. And I think this question from Tommy T deserves to be taken a look, deeper look into. We talked about Ron Rivera and this game passing him by, and he wants to do this. Is the game not the same as when Ron had Cam Newton?
No. Quarterbacks his size coming out and moving like that was a rarity at that time.
I think it's still rare. I still don't think you have a 6'5" mobile quarterback. I mean, Josh Allen, but
I think that's kind of when, outside of Vic, when the RPO was invented. So now the RPO has been invented. Now you got to move past that and be more innovative with the RPO rather than just line it up, speed option, or like what I'm talking about. So I think it has changed a little bit because defenses have gotten faster. They know how to play these bigger, stronger quarterbacks. Now you got to be more creative on how to get that quarterback out in the space rather than just lining him up and running him a fake pitch and go. I think it's changed.
I would say on the Vic point there, I don't think they really ran that many RPOs with Vic, right? Like Vic was designed run. It was that, and it was also designed runs. Mm-hmm. I think that if Michael Vick was around after RPOs became kind of like, you remember when the Wildcat became popular? Yeah! Everyone started doing the Wildcat, and then everyone figured out how the Wildcat worked, and then the Wildcat formed into RPOs. Like you needed a legitimate passer back there. Yep. I think if Michael Vick was around, now, if you get Michael Vick, 22-year-old Michael Vick injected in this league, oh Lord Almighty. Yeah. We like, as much as we admire what Lamar Jackson, what Justin Fields did this year, I just think Vic would just absolutely destroy the league even more so than what he did when RPOs weren't as common.
Mm-hmm. I think it's best.
RPO, there's kind of a misnomer with RPOs, and because there's RPOs and then there's read option.
Yeah,
because RPO is you might pass it. Read option is you're running it, you just don't know who's running it, whether it's the quarterback or the running back.
Yep.
So we kind of get those mixed up. And RG3 was running read option. He wasn't doing RPO. That really wasn't even a thing yet.
And he also wasn't a big stock quarterback though. He was fragile, small receiver built.
Yeah, he was just fast as a sumbitch.
Yeah.
I love to watch him play.
Oh boy, was it fun!
Who was the coordinator then?
That's a Kyle Shanahan one. Oh yeah, of course he was. Yep. Yeah. Because remember, Kyle changed the offense after they were 2-6. They said we got to run. Robert, you got to run. That's your talent. Run the effing ball, and then they took off.
Okay, so here's a question. Does it really matter who the offensive coordinator is if our head coach is a defensive-minded head coach?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it means more.
Ron, if Ron trusts that person to run the offense, then yes. If Ron, which what a lot of people are saying in the comments and what could be the case, if Ron and Marty go in and be like, no, you're going to run this ball 2 times to every 1 pass, then it matters a little less.
I'm asking
right?
because 7 out of the 8 teams left are all led by offensive-minded head coaches,
Right.
except for one.
Right.
And the one who is not is always just right there and just not make it. And that's Sean McDermott.
Right.
It's also just Buffalo's luck, right? Like that's
Well, I mean,
have our dark clouds.
That's what I'm getting at. If we want to be these teams that are still playing in January, does it really matter if your head coach is offensive minded or defensive minded? Seriously,
I think it does in this day and age. The rules are built to make offenses score more points, and so get offensive guys running your whole teams. Get guys who understand that.
So
that understand what it takes. Get offensive-minded folks.
That's what I'm leading. Will the offensive coordinator really matter as much as long as Ron?
You know what, Trev? This year it won't. This is going to be such a lost, sort of warped year that I just don't think it's going to matter who it is because they're not going to be here the following year. Yeah. They know it. Ron knows it. Everybody knows it. You know it. I know it. Nathan knows it. We all know it. It's just going to be a 1 year.
It's definitely going to be interesting. And as far as the offensive mind coach, I agree with both of you. I mean, if you look at the scores from wild card weekend, 41 to 23, 31 to 30, 34 to 31, 31 to 24, 24 to 17, 31 to 14. Washington averaged less than 20 points a game, pretty much for 2 seasons in a row. They're not winning any of these games. Not a single one of these games would 20 points earn them a victory.
Right.
And in fact, 20 points, even if they got to 20 points, they only beat 2 teams on this one, the Ravens and the Buccaneers. Every other team scored more than 20 points.
I'm tired of being the freshman who won't get asked to the dance. We got to be able to go to the dance with the juniors and the seniors, guys. I don't want all of our classmates to be invited to go and we can't go. Okay.
Well, you know what? If you want to get invited, stop drafting defensive players in the first round year after year after year.
Which leads me back to my question of having a defensive-minded head coach.
Right. Exactly. If he's your personnel guy.
But you don't understand, Stoner. It takes 3 to 5 years to turn around a franchise, right?
So we're in year 4, right? Okay, here we go.
We're in year 4. We're getting there.
It's all year, baby. It's all year.
You can't judge them just by wins and losses.
So who do you want? Who do you want as offensive coordinator? Who do you want?
Available or not available?
Available.
One of the ones they're interviewing or one that's available. Unfortunately, Bevel was quickly rising up the list.
I'm throwing Byron Leftwich out there because he might get fired. So if he's on the fence against fired or not,
he's available.
Byron Leftwich. Let's see what he can do with a young quarterback as offense coordinator.
He had Jameis.
Do you think that there's any worry that his success in Tampa Bay was because Bruce Arians was also there? We talked about some of these coaches kind of, kind of being a part of that offensive game plan. And now Bruce Arians steps up to the front office, and Byron Leftwich didn't necessarily have that great of a year.
Todd Bowles is not a good head coach. Love the man, but he's not a great head coach. That's so he probably brought a whole different philosophy in for Byron to teach Tom.
Well,
I'm 45, but I
believe Brady had the most pass attempts in the NFL this year.
He did. He had the most pass attempts ever. Obviously, it's a 17-game season, so it adds a little bit there. And he also had the most completions. Tom Brady still threw for like 4,000 yards. I mean, a lot of people are saying that he had a down year, and yes, there was definitely a lot of bad games in there. But statistically speaking, he was still an above average quarterback.
You know how many he threw in that game against Dallas?
61.
66.
6. Yeah, so maybe it's Todd Bowles saying we got to get Tom to air it out some more because we got these weapons.
Yeah, or
We'll
maybe
have a running
Byron
back.
Leftwich can't call a good game.
I mean, they were also down. They were also
did
down
last year.
18-0 in the first half. So
Yeah,
I mean, he called the same.
You're
I mean, he
right.
won a Super Bowl. I met Byron Leftwich actually once. He pulled up to my old job and got some.
Oh,
to-go
see,
food. That was pretty cool.
it's a bias that you have for wanting.
And he also played against VMI when he was at Marshall too down here. So it's cool. But but he won a Super Bowl just 3 years ago.
Yeah, you're right. Let me throw a name out here for you. Okay. I mean, this is gonna just like, he is I believe he is the quarterback's coach for San Fran.
Yes, that's exactly who I was looking at.
Really, Brian Greasy?
Stop playing.
He's not the quarterback coach.
He's something.
He is actually the quarterback coach.
He came out the booth. That's right.
Though.
He came out the booth and went to the 49ers.
Came out of the booth because he was
not the one I was looking for.
Coordinator for a
You
while.
want him, bro? Why? Because of what he's done with Brock Purdy. It's everything that's successful in San Francisco is Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. No one else. And DeMeco Ryans. No one else.
Oh, see, but what about Mike McDaniel?
He's not there anymore. I said currently there this year.
Okay, but I'm just saying that tree. Let's grab.
Where's did Mike McDaniel? Where's he at? Did he make the playoffs?
Well, he had a pretty darn good year, except every time Tua got hurt. He had to go to Bridgewater, who's going to be here next year and is better than Howell. But
maybe it wasn't
why not Brian Greasy?
Because he's old, bro.
He's not that old. He's
record,
43, maybe.
I'm looking at I'm on the Niners page right now, and I'm looking through their coaching staff, and he's not even listed.
He's like a consultant or something. He's not. That's what I'm saying. He has nothing to do with.
No, there he is. He's listed as he's got 12 years of experience as a quarterback coach. He wasn't the one I was looking at though. There was one of these younger guys. It was either on Shanahan's, maybe it was Kansas City's that I was looking at. I do want a younger guy. I want somebody but I don't think it's going to happen because of all the reasons we said. So we're going to get one of these, older ones. Maybe Brian Greasy, wants that chance.
He ain't going nowhere. He's living life in San Fran.
Yeah, Brock Purdy and all that good stuff. Yeah. We'll see. I don't have a particular name I'm looking for. I have this kind of the idea, like I said, that I want a younger, a younger guy from one of these successful trees. I just had it up. Get the tight end coach from San Francisco.
But also, it's going to be hard to get somebody comparable because they don't know who the hell they're going to be working for next year.
Yeah, and like I said, that's why they're not going to get anybody. The tight end coach is Brian Fleury, by the way.
Go get Mike LaFleur from New York.
4th season with the 49ers, first as the team's tight end coach. I'm not saying he's going to be great. I'm just saying like he's at least in their offensive house and maybe brings that kind of deal there.
Go get
Brian Fleury.
Mm-hmm. I just threw out a name. I literally just had it up and I was just like, somebody
Go get
from
Chris Kingsbury. Get his butt back from Thailand and bring him on over here.
Hey, Fleury is from Towson, Maryland.
Hey, there you go. He has experience on both sides of the ball, by the way. He's the tight end coach right now. Last year, he was an offensive quality control coach. 2020 was the same. He was defensive quality control coach in 2019.
How old is he?
He is, where would I have his age up here somewhere? Why you got to ask the questions I don't have handy?
Well, this is very important because we're talking all about
young guys and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're going to have to look it up. He's got 12 years of experience is all that it says on the page here. And I'm not seeing, he doesn't exactly have a Wikipedia article for me to pull from.
Good Lord. That's how way down. I can't endorse that.
Promote John Matsko as offensive coordinator.
He's what, the O-line coach?
Yeah, no.
He should be.
Why do you want a guy who couldn't take a first round draft pick and turn him into anything decent? The Fleury or LaFleur.
Mike LaFleur? Who did he take?
And he get fired from the Jets.
Yeah, who'd he take?
Zach Wilson.
Because you have a defensive-minded head coach, bro. I'm telling you. That makes a difference. I really think it makes a difference. We saw it here firsthand. Scott Turner and Ron disagreed plenty of times. It's probably a reason why he got fired, because he was disagreeing so much. Think about it.
All right, Mike LaFleur
Yeah.
is only 36, so
He's
he's
got
young.
room for improvement.
Oh, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I'll take that. Central Michigan University.
See? Go get him.
San
This
Francisco
is
passing
true,
game.
Tommy T. Tommy T. As you're looking that up and reading, I'm going to cut you off. You can read silently to yourself and then give us some actual good tidbits and not Michigan. Tommy T. here.
See what you got here, son.
Yeah, come on, glasses. Tommy T. I can't picture a young guy sitting in a room with Rivera and JDR for setting up game plans. You're right, Tommy T. I just don't.
I
I don't see it as much as we want it. I think Scott at 40 years old was the lowest they're probably willing to go, because they need to be able to relate to them. Could you imagine Mike McDaniels? Man, let's say he didn't go head coach Miami. Let's say he was, Shanahan's offensive, not even coordinator, because you got to be lower. Because Allison, you're absolutely right. No one's making a lateral move. It's not just this year. Every season, you just don't see coordinators go from one coordinator position to another unless they're, looking at maybe being an assistant head coach with the chance to potentially become the head coach for some other reason, right? You just rarely see lateral movements unless it's, again, somebody getting fired and then picked up again. But when you're talking, like, could you imagine Mike McDaniel being in the room with Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio and coming up with a plan?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can.
If it's the last year,
you have a wild imagination, Trev.
If your career is depending on it, like Stoner said in the earlier episodes, you do whatever it takes to save your job. So go get your nephew, your third cousin, your great grandson, bring him in there, sit him on your lap, and let him draw up offensive plays if you're trying to save your career. The optics might be bad, but hey, it ain't gonna happen for us, but it happens other places.
I made my decision.
What?
Brian Greasy.
You were all on Shane Waldron 2 months ago, and then you went to Ken Dorsey, and now Brian Greasy because we looked them up.
Just remember, Trev, we
that was for head coach. I want those guys for head coach, not OC. Okay. I want all those guys who are currently OCs as our OC, but that's not feasible.
Even in Houston, go get Levy Smith.
I want Brian Greasy.
Yeah, Michael, on Michael's point here, I can picture a young guy who wants the next head coach job being
bingo.
Sure. Absolutely, and I can absolutely see from Patriot clips, a young guy would be willing to make that move for 1 year just to get the shot, right? Like if you're talking from a guy who's been a tight end coach for 4 years, who this is his chance to become offensive coordinator, they're going to take it. You got to take your shots when you.
So if you have a successful year,
yes,
you're still the offensive coordinator.
What if the new regime wants to promote you as head coach?
If you have a successful year, why are you changing coaches? If you're 13-4 and you have a successful year, you're not changing coaches. If you have a bad year, you're getting kicked to the curb with all the other coaches. It doesn't make sense for a young coach to come in
to bet on themselves, because that's what they're doing, Stoner. They're going to bet on themselves,
right? But they're not going to ascend. They're going to stay as offensive coordinator, because there's no room to ascend to.
Well, most people wouldn't assume that they're going to be going from tight end coach to offensive coordinator to head coach in successive years, right? They're going to have to be an offensive coordinator for a few years to prove that they can do it and then get picked up. So that aside, I said we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. I'm not going to be a liar. I realize we're an hour 44 in. Stoner, you wanted a friendly debate, I suppose, on whether or not Fromm should get a chance at QB1. I'm going to give you a small chance here,
okay,
to talk to us about it. And in fact, I'm going to solo you,
okay,
to give us
That's me still.
what were
Can you
you
get rid of all this
thinking?
other stuff around me? I can't.
Ooh.
I
All
can't.
right, you can't concentrate
Ooh,
with our graphics. Can I keep this one up? How's that? Sure. No,
No.
take that one off. Let's go, Stoner. Let's hear your thoughts on Jake Fromm competing for QB1.
Okay. Jake Fromm should never, ever in the history of the world have any opportunity to compete for QB1 with Washington. I just wanted to ask the question. I just wanted some good debate out there. They signed him to their 90-man roster, a futures contract. He will be, when the new year comes around, the new league year, he will be on this team and going into training camp. So he'll be at OTAs and all that other stuff. I was just curious what people thought, whether or not Jake Fromm should be given a shot. And I wanted some real kind of research or real opinion rather than he sucks or delete your account or stop it or, things like that.
The glasses is smoking something.
I was trolling only in this way, in that people always wanted to say about Sam Howell, and I wanted to compare Sam Howell to Jake Fromm because they are very similar into what they've done up to this point. That's all.
Oh my God. Let me get
And I just wanted to know. I'm not advocating for it in any way. I think Jake Fromm, from what we saw on the field, was gross. And I don't want him anywhere near this team. But the team signed him to be at minimum camp fodder. So he's going to be there, and he will probably be the third stringer.
There's a good chance that he ends up back on the practice squad and is QB3. Yeah, metaphor going with the State Farm joke. That's what I did. When I saw that post, I responded with the Jake from State Farm GIF, and then said no. And then Stoner challenged and said, "Well, why not?"
Yeah,
and
just
here's why. Here's why. I got some stats. Jake Fromm with the 2021 New York Football Giants.
Yeah,
in 3 games.
2 games and a quarter.
3 games. He completed 27 passes out of 60.
Mm-hmm. It's like 45%.
210 yards, 1 tutty, and 3 picks.
Okay. Now here's what I'll say to that, Trev. When Sam Howell has 2 bad games at the beginning of the year, you better be first in line to say, get Sam Howell out of there. He sucks. He can't play. Don't give him any more chances.
Sam Howell came in and beat the playoff-bound Dallas Cowboys in his very first career start with really good stats. Compared to Jake Fromm. Compared to Jake Fromm. Compared to Jake, I had a comma. Compared to Jake Fromm.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I'm here nodding with Trev as he's going along, and he is like, with very good ooh, man.
Compared to Jake Fromm.
You lost me there. But but look, he was a 5th rounder. Okay, right? He was a 5th round pick.
I as soon as I saw that tweet, I was like, when was Jake Fromm 5th round? This is why Stoner's asking the question.
That's exactly why I'm asking the question, because he was also a 5th rounder. And people say somebody responded, and I won't name names because I'm really ticked off at that particular person. But they said he's been given up on by 3 teams, which is a fabrication. It's not true. He was drafted by Buffalo.
Yep.
Okay. The Giants signed him off of Buffalo's practice squad to be on their active roster. Buffalo didn't give up on him.
No.
Okay. The Giants gave up on him.
Yes.
Then he signed with Washington. Washington didn't give up on him. They signed him to a futures contract. So one team gave up on him. Okay. Which is fine. Again, I'm not advocating for him. I just want people to think about it rather than just saying he sucks. Well, he's got just about the same experience and stats and pedigree that Sam Howell has. And in fact,
Stunner.
if you look at his stats from the combine, they're better than Sam Howell.
But
all
they
of them.
don't.
He ran faster. All that. He had a great college career.
Yeah, he did.
So
Stunner.
Oh, see, this is
Stunner.
where I disagree when people talk about his college stats. His college stats are mediocre. You're not going to convince me otherwise on that. And I can bring up where he
mediocre?
was mediocre.
He had 78 touchdowns in 3 years.
Okay.
That's not mediocre.
Compare him to his peers. Okay. You are like great, whatever, 78 touchdowns. Compare him to his peers. Do that for me. In his best year,
Compare him to his years
His
while he was in
peers.
college.
yes, compare him to his peers while he was in
Okay.
college. And I'm telling you, when I'm calling him mediocre, I'm not calling him bad. Stop. People need to stop this. Okay. When I say someone's decidedly mediocre, which Jake Fromm in college was decidedly mediocre, I'm saying if you look at all the QBs in Division I football, he was mediocre. He didn't even crack the top 50 QBs in QB rating. So you cannot. Yes, Trev. Right. If you were in the 51 through 75 range, which is where I'm pretty sure he was, you're mediocre. Okay. And in
Hold
the
on.
passing yardage.
Repeat that. Repeat that. Repeat
In
that.
50 to 75, if you're in that range, you
How
are
many-
mediocre.
How many college teams are there?
Out of D1, that's what, 112?
Oh, now we're only doing D1.
I said
Yeah, he
D1.
said that.
Okay.
I literally said D1. Thank you for paying attention,
He did
Stoner.
say that.
Come on, glasses.
He did say that.
And then also you go to passing yardage. He was like 40 something on passing yardage.
Ooh, here we go. Here we go. I found the list that he's talking about, I think. 2019 college quarterback stats.
No,
Passing.
but 2018 was his best year.
2019 was his best year passing.
So out of 50 quarterbacks. You ready?
2018 was.
He ranks 46th in the passing list out of 50 quarterbacks. 4 spots ahead of Jay Duffy out of Texas Tech.
What's 50?
Tua out of Alabama. Nick Rourke out of Ohio, and Steven Montez out of Colorado. That was his passing.
How did you get 50?
Because I'm on
There's more than 50.
college football player stats. It goes up to 50.
Okay, it only goes to 50.
Well, top 50, I guess you could say in college.
Yeah,
He was,
top 50.
yeah.
Sorry, to be not mediocre in my book, when you're talking D1 schools, you got to be
Sam Howell was
like the
14th, by the way, on that list.
yeah. And I was about to say top 15.
That's
Like you
Sam
have,
Howell.
like if you're talking about not mediocre, I'm going to call you
Okay.
good. I'm going to call you good if you're like from 16.
Jalen Hurts is on there.
Probably 40, maybe call you good. 40 is really low though. But
You know what?
mediocre is mediocre. And Jake Fromm was mediocre.
Nick Chalmers bad. Go ahead.
Mission accomplished. I made you all think about it rather than just saying he sucks.
No, we didn't have to
That's
think
all
about
I
it.
wanted to do.
He sucks was the general term of us thinking about it.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
No, it wasn't. When you get a comment back in 30 seconds that says he sucks, or 45 seconds that says delete your account,
I'm proving that he
I want to
sucks.
know. Right.
proving it.
We
You
are
had to
now.
think about it. You had to look into it.
Yeah. What
That's
Stoner
what I
was.
wanted you to do.
Yeah. So Stoner was mad at one particular tweet. I did take a little bit of offense on one tweet that was talking about the fan base in general, but it was in response to mine, where I'd said that Jake Fromm was mediocre in college. And it was that our fan base is uninformed and sometimes just stupid. And I was just like, ooh, okay. I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm like, you want uninformed? I literally looked up the stats and watched him play to make an informed opinion. So I toned down myself, realized that on the internet, some people, you can't look into tone and everything. But when I'm disregarding Jake Fromm in the QB1 competition, it's not because he was a 5th round pick, he's on his 3rd team or anything like that. I mean, those play a factor. It's because I've seen enough from his play in the NFL and in college to know that this guy isn't like there's the it factor, right? You can't explain it. RG3 had it. I remember I was actually at a game in Stillwater, Oklahoma, watching RG3 play, and I was like, he has it. Stoner can tell you, leading up into that draft, I told him RG3. This is a guy. This is a guy you're going to want to pay attention to. This is a guy we should be excited about. And because he had it, right? When I watch Sam Howell tape, I can see he has it. There's something about it.
Oh, come on now.
Oh my
Stoner,
God.
you can't do a sniff test. You can't do a sniff test and then expect me not to do it.
Sam Howell. You can't look at Sam Howell and say he has it.
Yes, you can.
In North Carolina,
Nobody has ever done that.
Why was he considered a number 1 draft pick if he didn't have it?
Trev, all I got to do is go out here on the interwebs and type in Stoner is being considered for a first-round pick. And then somebody can say he's been considered for a first-round pick.
But they have tape to prove it, bro.
I love you, Joe Rockhead J. But that's the worst way to try and say that he's better than he is, because at one time he was considered a top draft pick. If you were considered a top draft pick, you would have been drafted as a top draft pick.
Jake Fromm was never considered that.
Okay, that's fine. We're not talking about Fromm right now.
We are.
We're talking about Howell.
I'm telling you,
he doesn't have it.
He
might
watch,
eventually have it.
He has it, bro.
Right now.
You don't have. Okay, it essentially, yes, Allison. It is those intangibles. There's players who have it who might not have the others, the tangibles, right? You have Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield has it. He's got that swagger, right? Taylor Heineke has got moxie. We hear this all the time, that they have those pieces, or they're intelligent and all this other stuff. They just don't have those physical traits. Sam Howell might not have something that makes him a QB1. But when I watch him play, there is something about him that gets you excited. Stoner, you have this joke all the time about, it moved. That's what I'm talking about. That's the it factor. Is when you watch. I'm telling you, if you watch a few full length, not just highlights, a full length North Carolina games. Just watch them with Sam Howell. There's something there where it's just like, wow, this guy can really put it together. Then
why was Desmond Ritter and Malik Willis?
Malik Willis has it. Malik Willis is an exciting player. You want to see Malik Willis kind of be successful.
Same guy who was terrible when he played.
He's and sometimes, again, Stoner, sometimes it doesn't translate to the NFL. But those are the guys. Those are the guys that you want on your team. You want to see them be successful.
I just wanted to clear that up. That I'm not advocating for Jake Fromm to compete for QB1.
He's going to compete for QB2, though, for sure.
Ask the question. And by the way, I would say about 30% of folks out there want him competing for QB1. Just let me put that out there.
Well, of course they did. They probably went to Georgia.
Well, a lot of people are kind of on the stance of Patriot Clips here. And thanks for joining us, Patriot Clips, that agree with you, Stoner. If the guy's on the roster, he should be able to compete. If not, why do you have him? And
you got to fill roster spots. That's why we have him.
I feel like I understand where you're coming from with that particular statement, right? You sign him to a future contract. Why wouldn't you let him compete?
To compete for quarterback too.
And that's Trev, you're right.
Maybe.
Realistically, he's there to compete for the QB2 spot. Like he's not gonna. And he's camp fodder, and so
agree.
That's where
I agree with that. I just wanted to know because I saw he got signed, and I was just curious as to whether people thought he should have should be able to compete, because there are some comparisons.
Stoner stirred the pot,
and I got roasted, and maybe fairly so. But
fairly
a lot of people interpreted it as as Jake Fromm should compete for QB1, and that's not what it was at all.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people really kind of leaning in on that too. A few of the quote tweets, and then some we'll call them sub tweets, where there are people who just tweeted out about it, where people are seriously looking at Jake Fromm at QB1. We can't take this fan base seriously or anything like that. And that's Read the tweet. It's not at all what was being said, but it did get people going. A lot more than our QB rankings as far as who's going to be QB1. Just a reminder, your guy here, Nathan, did have Sam Howell at number 3. If you want to see who I have at 1 and 2, you're going to want to tune in next week for our next Press Your Luck, because we will be pressing our luck again on the QB1 talks. We're going to be doing 2 a week now to make sure that we get these done before the league year, so that way there's no trading or no more. We might do more than the 10 videos we have planned, but we're going to be pressing our luck. So you're going to want to take a look at that on Monday. If you haven't already, take a look at what we thought about Sam Howell being QB1. That video was released this previous Monday. Of course, we're live every Wednesday here on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you. We do have Super Chat always open. We appreciate Command This for jumping in and giving the near $10 donation they did earlier. And guys, you have anything left to say?
No, man.
I'm tapped out, brother.
Yeah, it's been 2 hours and 33 seconds. So until next time.
Yeah, man.
Sign Jake Fromm.
Brian Greasy.
Be a fan. God.